Good evening, everybody. I am Councilmember Jonathan Newsom of the 4th Ward, chairing the Monday, August 28th meeting of the Planning and Development Committee. I will call a roll. We have Councilmember Kelly, Councilmember Wynn, Councilmember Newsom is here, Councilmember Burns, here, Councilmember Ravel, here, Councilmember Reed, not yet in the room, Councilmember Harricottis.
Here.
A quorum being present, we will continue with our agenda. The next item is approval of minutes. If somebody could make a motion.
So moved.
It's been moved by Councilmember Kelly, seconded by Councilmember Wynn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The minutes of our meeting of July 10th are approved. That brings us to public comment. Director Flax, how many people do we have signed up for public comment?
We have 1, 2, 3, 4.
Four. All right. So public comment tonight will be limited to 2 minutes per person, and we will start with
Matt Cotter,
and then just we could
Mark
read them in
Bishop,
order.
Matt Carter, Cotter, excuse me, Mark Bishop, Michelle Redford, and again, no, I counted one too many.
Okay, just
It's only
three. All right, so we'll start with Matt Cotter. Mr. Cotter, you have 2 minutes. Is Mr. Cotter in the room? Is Mr. Cotter online? Does Wendy Pollack, who is Matt's co-chair of the Environment Board, wish to jump in here?
Thank you. Good evening. I'm guessing.
Oh, sorry. That was Matt's timer.
All right. Yeah. I'm guessing that Matt thought he was signing up to speak before council, so he may show up again then. But the Environment Board obviously is very interested in seeing the tree ordinance move forward, and tonight hope that that can happen. And you all know all the reasons why, and we've been working on this for years. So it sounds as if the staff is there and ready to implement it. So just speaking in support. Thank you.
Thank you. So next up we have
Mark Bishop.
Mark Bishop. Mr. Bishop, he's online? Not in the room? Mr. Bishop, Mark Bishop, going once, going twice? Maybe he signed up for council as well.
He did enter a comment concerned about old tree removal at Canal Shores.
Okay. If he reserves the right to speak in public comment at the council meeting. So we'll move on to the next person.
Michelle Redfield.
Michelle Redfield. Ms. Redfield is not in the room, perhaps online. I don't see her online. So again, Ms. Redfield reserves the right to comment at City Council.
And the last two didn't say whether they were at P&D or council, so I'm just assuming we need to give them the chance.
All right. The last two that we just read, or we have 2 more?
No, the last two.
Okay. All right, so last chance for public comment in front of the Planning and Development Committee.
Do you want this read into the record?
Going once, going twice in the room, going once, going twice online. All right, let's move forward with our agenda. If somebody could make a motion on item P1.
I move ordinance 15023, amending Title 7, Chapter 8, concerning the protection of trees on private property.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Wynn, seconded by Councilmember Ravel. I am going to ask Emily Ucklow from staff to make a short presentation, which hopefully is not any different than what you presented last time we met. Not much different. You'll tell us.
No,
We'll see.
it's not different. Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Chair and members of the committee.
the presentation is a summary of what's included in the ordinance, in the packet, in the draft policy documents. All right, so this ordinance was put together by myself and Public Services Coordinator and Liz Williams, Planning Manager. Do you want to hand me the mouse, or is there? Okay, so the private tree ordinance, as I think a couple of you who have been here longer than I've been here know, this has been going around for a few years, but here we are now in August of 2023, and this is where we are. So the basis for this ordinance is that CARP was passed in 2018, and Action 3 in the urban canopy and green space goals was to pass an ordinance protecting trees on private property. The Environment Board, who was directed by this committee to work on the ordinance, provided 3 goals to staff when they requested assistance from staff. Those goals were to protect trees 6 inches in diameter and above, protect trees against damage, and protect trees from removal. So staff took those 3 goals, and that's how we set about creating this ordinance. Another goal that we feel is universal, we believe that everybody agrees with this goal, is to not place an undue burden on property owners who are financially vulnerable. So going towards the biology of trees and the sort of the construction of the urban forest, we know from research that 7 out of 10 trees approximately in the city of Evanston are located on private property. It could even be as high as 8. We also know that approximately 75% of trees in town are smaller than 20 inches in diameter. And we know that big trees, there's a lot of research that shows that big trees are exponentially more beneficial. And the reason that it matters that 75% of trees are smaller than 20 inches is because we do have a lot of large trees in Evanston, and they provide a lot of benefits. But what we really need is for the smaller trees to have the opportunity to become big. Because if they're cut down when they're smaller, then they don't have the opportunity to become those really, really big trees that are going to provide those exponentially greater benefits. So big trees do need protection, but we also need to provide the opportunity to small trees to become big. And then lastly, as we were preparing this ordinance, I spoke to my peers in neighboring communities, communities that already have tree protection, tree preservation ordinances. And they told me that a lot of those ordinances charge a lot of money when you want to remove a tree. You can remove a tree as you want, but you do have to pay a lot of money. And that the benefits are that some trees get planted, but that overall trees don't really get protected because, property owners can remove trees sort of at will as long as they charge a lot of money or plant some trees. So that's how we ended up with the ordinance that we're presenting tonight. And then, I know there's a lot of questions about how this ordinance works, so I created a flow chart. This is the one that's in the packet. The only exception is that I added that property owners want to remove a tree that's greater than 6 inches, so I just want to make it clear, trees that are smaller than 6 inches can be removed without a permit. I also made it a little bigger, that's why the formatting's a little off. I just thought it'd be easier to have it up there. So essentially, a property owner is going to start by determining whether they want to do construction on their property. If they do, then they're going to submit as part of their building permit process. That process will go through a tree preservation review, and it'll be integrated into the permit process for construction. If the property owner is not doing construction but wishes to remove a tree, then the flow chart gets into whether the tree has some sort of critical reason that it needs to come down, if it's dead, if it's invasive, it's hazardous. If that's the case, then there's an easy path to a permit to remove the tree. If that's not the case, then that property owner will request a variation from the Human Services Committee. There was also some conversation about mitigation fees. This is the formula that staff came up with. Essentially, it looks at the size of the tree, it looks at the value of the tree from a species perspective, If trees are planted in place of payment fee, then of payment, this is the formula, and then it comes out to 16 trees for a 21-inch elm tree. If it's not, if the property owner does not wish to plant trees, then it turns into to money, to cash. And at this point, staff used $200 per tree as a price on what it would cost to plant a tree on private property. And then the last aspect of this is that our staff is proposing a June 1st implementation date. And in order the steps that need to be taken before then is to hire, a coordinator who's going to be able to oversee this process, software integration into the building permit process, as well as, community development staff understanding the process as well, so teaching them, developing outreach materials, and then updating the website and current flyers to reflect these changes. So that is where we are today, and that's what's being proposed. Liz, do you have anything to add? Okay. All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. And just before we get into the discussion on this, I want to make it clear procedurally that the timeline of this initiated with the previous council, but there was a referral on this item as of March 7th of this year. So it has gone properly through the process with current rules in place. So we are good to go. Is there any discussion on this item? Councilmember Ravel.
So Emily, could you talk a little bit about the process for the homeowner whose tree is, hazardous, damage, whatever?
Sure. So that homeowner would reach out to the city. There's going to be a form to fill out. It'll most likely be an online form. That homeowner would indicate which tree it is. If there's an easy picture that the property owner can take, then they would submit a picture as well, just to make it clear which tree that is. And then the staff person, so the tree preservation coordinator, who would be a certified arborist, would come out and look at the tree, confirm that it's dead, that it's hazardous, that it's invasive, that this is not the right tree to have in this space, and then provide the permit, issue the permit.
And would the homeowner be paying
There would be a $75 permit fee.
just because the person our forestry person needs to come do the inspection?
Right, it would be the permit fee.
Right.
Yeah, it's a
But
receiver permit.
there wouldn't be no mitigation. I mean, they wouldn't have to pay into a.
The staff arborist would most likely encourage the homeowner to plant a tree or,
Sure,
in its
right.
place, but it would be encouraged, not required.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. I have some comments, but if people have questions first.
Anybody else? Councilmember Ravel, you can continue.
I can pontificate, okay. Well, just, we've had approval of the private tree preservation ordinance on our climate action agenda for 2 years now, so it's definitely time to move ahead with that. It features also in our E-plan and the importance of trees for a lot of health reasons, particularly for people who are living in the neighborhoods where they don't have as many trees as others. I think there's been some concern about tree police, and I guess I just want to say that the private tree is obviously of tremendous benefit to the homeowner, but it provides a lot of benefits as well to the surrounding neighborhood and then to the community as a whole. And so it really is a community resource, and it's not, so I think there's a real legitimate reason for us to have a tree preservation ordinance for these private trees. I guess I did have one maybe more minor kind of question, maybe God forbid, an amendment to the ordinance. So it's the section on pruning, and it refers to any pruning having to be done by a certified and qualified professional. So, I mean, homeowners presumably prune their own trees without having to hire a professional. And, so could we say something that was more along the lines of requiring industry standards, or, something that implies that we want people to do it properly, but without them having to have a paid arborist come do that.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. That is something that we considered, and I appreciate that. Of course, we don't want to, take away the ability from property owners. I think what I can communicate though is that a property owner or any amount of pruning that's going to be done to a tree that is going to significantly impact that tree, I would be quite surprised that an average property owner who's not certified and qualified would be able to do it. And I purposely left certified and qualified not capitalized, to consider that a property owner could be qualified to do this pruning and would have experience in it. I think the average property owner is not going to significantly impact a tree when they participate in pruning if they're doing it using, the tools that are available, to an average property owner. They're most likely not going to significantly damage or impact.
I hope not.
Yeah, I would hope so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Sorry, is there any further discussion? Councilmember Reed?
Yeah, I do have, I support this ordinance, and were you the sponsor, Councilmember Ravel? I don't know, who is the, someone sponsored it, and I'm appreciative of whoever did that. I do have, this is the first reading, so I have a few questions for legal to just understand, to make sure they're on solid grounds there, but otherwise I'm prepared to vote yes now and then have those questions answered between now and then.
Councilmember Kelly.
Just as a point of order, I had a question regarding readings, and this is introductions. So, and I looked back through like 2018, 19, and 20, and 21, and noticed that we would usually have introduction to action at P&D. But we're not doing that. And did that change at some point where we only do introduction? I mean, will we have two readings on this at P&D?
No, as a point of order.
No. Okay, that's what I thought. I just noticed recently, noticed that. I just wonder, when did that actually change? Because in the past, we would have intro and action at P&D. And I pulled up all the years from 2018 to 20. So I'm just wondering, I assume we must have voted or changed the rules at some point.
I need to look into that. I can get back to you on that, though.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember Kelly, presumably your concern would apply to other committees as well. So might I suggest we take this up behind the scenes with staff, and if we need to, at Rules Committee?
Sure.
Okay, so is there any further discussion on item P1, ordinance 15023, before us this evening for introduction? Seeing none, I will call for a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Councilmember Hadakaris?
Aye.
Councilmember Ravel?
Aye.
Councilmember Burns?
Aye.
Councilmember Wynn? Councilmember Kelly?
Aye.
Councilmember Nusma?
Aye.
Unanimous?
Item P1 passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Moving us to item P2, ordinance 75023, which is special use for a convenience store, Dempster snack shop, and a special use for a type 2 restaurant, Windy City Flavors, in the B1 Business District at 1806 and 1808 Dempster Street. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved by Councilmember Reed, seconded by Councilmember Ravel. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, I will call for a voice vote on item P2. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Item P2 carries unanimously. Any items for discussion or communication from anybody else on the committee? Seeing none, I will call this meeting adjourned as of 6:06. And we'll see everybody back here at 6:30 for the council meeting. Thank you all.